Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Can you be a Labour MP if you're not prepared to support your leader in becoming Prime Minister? Well, Labour MP John Woodcock thinks so, and he wants to be a Labour Party candidate again. Here he is talking to some of his constituents.
I don't think he would be fit to be Prime Minister, even if it were possible that it was going to happen. We know that it isn't, but to try to reassure people like you and your son, I said, I'm Labour, I'll always be Labour, and I will stand up for the Labour Party in Parliament, but this isn't right. And so if it came to it, I wouldn't allow it to happen, not with my vote.
And John Woodcock joins us now from Carlisle. John Woodcock, there's a Labour NEC meeting tomorrow. Are you worried you're about to be deselected?
Well, I really hope I'm not, because like so many of my Labour colleagues across the country, I have, after recovering from the shock of the election being called, we have been working our socks off. We've got thousands of leaflets going out, direct mails that are arriving on people's doorsteps as we speak, paid for by the National Labour Party. So, you know, I really hope that I'll be able to go through with the other candidates to become the official Labour candidate for Barrow-in-Furness.
How can you stand under a Labour banner when you won't back the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, to run the country?
Well, I recognise that it's highly unusual, and I understand why it's controversial for many people. But do you know, Joe, I just thought I should be honest, because people know what I think about Jeremy's leadership qualities, and you know they have a particular view in Barrow about Jeremy Corbyn. Many people, because of his long-held views about the renewal of Trident, a programme, the submarine programme, which I absolutely backed to the hilt. And so I thought, rather than being asked the question and having to fudge it like I would have been doing for 6 weeks, I thought I'd be honest about what I'd said.
But being honest and saying, I will not countenance ever voting to make Jeremy Corbyn Britain's Prime Minister, you can't stand as a Labour Party candidate, can you? I mean, he wouldn't have your vote. In other words, you'd rather see Theresa May, a Conservative, as Prime Minister than Jeremy Corbyn.
No, that's absolutely not.
Well, who do you want to be Prime Minister?
Well, the truth is, as we know, Joe, that Labour is not going to win this election nationally. The Tories called this.
The polls have been wrong before.
Well, look, the Tories are desperate to make you believe and to make the public believe that the polls are wrong. They're going around saying, oh no, it's on a knife edge. They know the reason that they do that is because they want an absolute whitewash. They want hundreds of Tory MPs coming back. Now the question is not actually who is going to be Prime Minister, because we know that Theresa May is going to come back. It is whether communities like Barrow-in-Furness, communities across the north of England are going to retain a strong Labour voice rather than a Tory nodding dod who would just
But what does it mean when you say Jeremy Corbyn will not have your vote? What does that mean in practice?
Well, in the purely theoretical circumstances, because it's not going to, this is not going to happen. But if it came to it, if there was a majority of 1 or 0, I would demand that actually Labour picked a leader who could better command a majority in the House of Parliament and could be a better Prime Minister. But as I say, Joe, this is a completely theoretical. These are theoretical circumstances because we know that the Tories have called this election because they're 20 points ahead in the polls.
Would you stand as an independent?
No, I want to be on the Labour ticket.
Well, I understand that.
I want to be the official candidate, and that is what I have poured all my resources in. We had a really difficult meeting with the local with my local party members, my local organisers, as you can imagine. Strong views were heard, but then we came out of that meeting resolving to do the very best we could to keep the Tories out of power. And it's ironic, I have to say, that actually many of the people who talk about a progressive alliance, although it seem to be the ones who want to stop me being the candidate in Barrow-in-Furness and absolutely hand the seat on the plate to the Tories.
All right,
I don't want to see that happen.
I'm going to have to finish it there. Thank you very much. Philip, can he really be the Labour candidate in this election?
I'm sceptical. I mean, if only because that theoretical question of who you back is not an unimportant question
well,
if there is a vote.
Critical if you're a candidate, you do need to decide which party and which leader you're going to be.
When it comes to a vote of confidence, who do you back, even if it is maybe theoretical? Where I have some sympathy for John Woodcock is that he's not actually saying much more than privately lots of Labour MPs are saying.
But there is a difference between private and public.
Absolutely. And even publicly, when they're going on doorsteps, what a lot of Labour MPs are saying is Jeremy Corbyn is not going to become Prime Minister. There's going to be a Conservative government. You can have me as your Labour MP. I will stand up for the area. You don't want a massive Conservative majority. In that sense, that bit of the Woodcock message is being said by a lot of incumbent Labour MPs knocking on doorsteps all over the country. He's gone that little bit further than most of them, and I suspect he's gone too far.
Right. He says he's being honest, and in a way, from what you've said, he's just being more honest, perhaps, than some of his
I know other Labour MPs, bluntly, who have said to me privately they would rather have Theresa May as Prime Minister than Jeremy Corbyn. That's their private view. They won't say that publicly, and he's not saying that.
No, he didn't say that, and nor did Neil Corr. Said a Labour Prime Minister, any Labour Prime Minister is better than a Tory Prime Minister. You've spoken to Labour candidates who say they would prefer Theresa.
Yeah, privately, yeah. Privately. Although, like John Woodcock, their view is it's a purely theoretical question.
Well, we'll know the result.
And we know that in June, sure.
There's a contrast between the Tory and Labour campaigns in that Theresa May is ahead of her party in the poll ratings, while Jeremy Corbyn is below his party. Now, one of the consequent weirdnesses about this whole campaign is that many Labour candidates are trying to distance themselves from their leader. Meanwhile, many Labour activists, of course, are enthusiastic about him and are campaigning hard in his name as well as Labour's. The Corbyn supporting group Momentum is out and about drumming up support. So is there sometimes a dissonance between the line taken by the candidate and those who come to campaign? James Clayton has been to Luton South to see how the Labour campaign is working on the ground.
Luton is that rarest thing in southern England, a Labour town outside London. They have 2 MPs here. That's a sixth of Labour MPs in the whole of the south outside the capital. The local MP in Luton, Gavin Shuker, has a majority of just under 6,000 from the Tories, and that puts him in the crosshairs of Theresa May's Conservative Party. So how are Labour MPs like Mr Shuker planning to defend themselves?
Normally in an election what you'd want to do is identify where your Labour vote is and turn them out. In this election we're doing it slightly differently. We're trying to identify where the people that are wobbly about voting Labour are and persuade them. There's always a bit of both in both campaigns, but with maybe 1 in 5 Labour voters with question marks about how they're going to put the X in the box, that's the absolute priority for us. The message that we're delivering on the doorstep, you can have a great local MP, but you don't want to give Theresa May a blank cheque.
So you've got Theresa May, don't give her a blank cheque. That sounds like you're not particularly confident that you're going to win this election.
Well, look, the reality is if the polls are at least in the ballpark, Labour's not going to form the next government.
It is quite a confusing message, isn't it? Because you're basically telling the electorate, we're the Labour Party, we're going to lose, vote for us.
Undoubtedly, we're in a paradox. The closer it looks nationally, arguably the harder it is to win some of these seats that we retain, because the question marks about leadership, Brexit and other policy issues make it harder to make a case about a straight choice between the 2 different leaders.
You've got a lovely picture of yourself and you've got re-elect Gavin Shuker, but you don't have your great leader Jeremy Corbyn on there.
Well, to be honest, in 2010 I didn't have Gordon Brown, and in 2015 I didn't have Ed Miliband.
Is that more a reflection about your leaders?
No, not at all. I like all of them. The reality is a seat like Luton is won by being a local candidate. Hello there. Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
You wouldn't offer up Jeremy Corbyn as a pitch to a floating voter, would you? Or would you?
The reality is if you're a floating voter, Labour support in the past with question marks right now, most of the concerns that they express are around leadership. And so for that reason, it's not that kind of election for us. It has to be on our local records and not the national picture.
But not everyone agrees with Gavin.
Hi, my name's Elaine, I'm from the Labour Party, and I just want to know if you've got a few minutes to talk about the general election. election.
In London, the grassroots campaigning group Momentum have been training local volunteers about how to campaign effectively on the doorstep. And rather than focus on local issues, activists are teaching volunteers how to field difficult national questions. Here, Jeremy Corbyn is seen very much as a positive on the doorstep.
We think Jeremy represents something really wonderful. He's a new kind of politics, a kind politics, a truthful politics, and we're very proud of that, and we think that that resonates with people, and so we want to take that to the doorstep.
But the local MPs don't necessarily think that.
There's a lot of things going on in the party, as people know, 2 leadership elections, but in this general election, we think Jeremy Corbyn is someone that people can believe in, and what he stands for and the politics that he represents is something people can believe in, so we're proudly taking that to people.
To work with us, and obviously
Momentum is a mixed blessing for many Labour MPs. With 150,000 registered supporters, it's a potentially powerful weapon in this election, but not everyone is convinced.
Do you think that Momentum will be useful in this campaign?
I think Momentum could be hugely useful if they can translate the numbers of supporters they have into people coming through the door of this campaign office and out on the doorstep. My membership has increased by 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years, but my number of activists has not increased really over that period of time. So what we need is encouragement to say that if you want Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister, you've got to come out and support these local MPs.
Labour's internal differences have been well publicised in recent months. But just as members have wildly different ideas of what they want from Labour Party policy, so too do they differ on how best to convince constituents to vote Labour come June the 8th.
James Clayton reporting there.